Hey guys, welcome back to the channel that helps you earn more, spend less, and invest the difference. Today we're going to be talking about why you should never tell a car dealer that you're paying cash. Now, if you've saved up enough money to buy a car with cash, then congratulations. Being able to drop $10, $20, $30,000 to pay for a car cash is fantastic, just not when it comes to negotiating the sales price. You see, unlike with buying a house, when you're buying a house, you can sometimes get a better sales price on the house if you pay cash, because the seller of the house knows that if they accept your offer, the sale is going to go through and it will go through quickly. And so when people are buying a car, they just assume that paying cash is a good thing and view it as a bargaining chip. Except in this case, it's not, because the dealership is not financially incentivized to accept a cash offer. In fact, it's very likely that if you and I both walk into a car dealership looking to buy the exact same vehicle, and we both do our best to negotiate and haggle the sales price as low as we possibly can, then there's a very good chance that you will end up paying more for the vehicle if you're paying cash than I will, because I'm going to tell the dealership I'm willing to finance the vehicle, even if I just plan on paying cash later on. The key to understanding all of this requires us to take a look at the underlying business model of a typical car dealership. Many people think that car dealerships make their money by selling cars. Similarly, people typically think that the McDonald's Corporation makes their money selling hamburgers. But that's not really the way it works. In fact, a fair number of businesses actually make the majority of their profits in very surprising ways. While the individual McDonald's franchise store cares about selling burgers, the overall McDonald's Corporation is actually a real estate business. The vast majority of their corporate profits come from individual franchise owners of the store paying the McDonald's franchise a leasing fee. Think of it this way. Think of each of the roughly 33,000 McDonald's stores worldwide. Think of each of them as an apartment complex paying rent each and every month to the McDonald's company. That's how they make their money. And likewise, when it comes to car dealerships, only roughly 25% of gross profit comes from new car sales. Part of the reason why sales make up such a small percentage of profit is the proliferation of price transparency in recent years. Anyone can easily get on the internet and within a few seconds see what similar vehicles are selling for in and around their area. This has caused the gap in the spread that dealerships are able to upsell their vehicles for to shrink dramatically, as they must be competitive with their peers. Instead, surprisingly, dealerships are in the banking and services industry, making the majority of their profits once they get you into that back room to start doing the paperwork to purchase your new car. The profits come from things like F&I, which stands for finance and insurance, accessories, service fees, and parts. These are the major profit centers of a dealership today. The buying of the car itself is largely irrelevant, except that was the mechanism through which the dealership was able to upsell you on all of these extras. This is where they will attempt to sell you things like gap insurance, wheel insurance, extended warranties, protection packages, etc., etc., etc. And the funny thing is that the vast majority of these extended warranty packages are never used. So you're paying for a product that you will end up never utilizing. Now, a car dealership needs to make a profit in order to stay in business, so there's a realistic to how far you can haggle down the price. But the dealership is much more willing to give you a fantastic deal on the price itself if they think they can make up for it once they get you in the back with the financing. And that's why you should never pay cash for a car, because the sale of the car itself only accounts for about 25% of the dealership's profit. So if the dealership knows that you're going to be financing the vehicle and that the dealership can make a profit financing that vehicle to you, then they're much more likely to give you a good price on the vehicle itself. They're willing to take a lower upfront purchase price and instead choose to make their money on the back end. Now, you might be wondering how a car dealership makes money on financing, and they generate a profit by either collecting a referral fee, which is essentially just a commission that they charge the lender for referring a new client to them, or they can generate revenue through arbitrage of the buy-sell rate. And what this means is that maybe you find a lender willing to loan you money at 4% interest, but instead the dealership charges you 6% interest and keeps that 2% interest for themselves. Now, doing some quick math, if you had taken out a $20,000 loan and financed it over 60 months, the difference between charging you 4% interest versus 6% interest adds up to a little over $1,000. So you can see how the dealership is much more likely to negotiate the base price of the vehicle because they know they're going to be making some money on the financing side of the house. Now, instead, what I recommend is to let the dealership know right off the bat that you intend to finance this vehicle, regardless if you can afford to pay cash. This way, when you're negotiating the price of the vehicle, the dealership is less likely to try to beat you up over the price and more likely to give you a decent price on the car itself, with their intent to instead make money on the financing. Now, when it comes to actually purchasing and paying for the vehicle, you have two options. The first is to simply get a loan from the dealership and purchase the vehicle that way. Then, a week later, you just call up the lender and request a payoff amount and immediately pay the loan in full. This way, you are effectively paying cash for the vehicle, but still getting the better sticker price for the car. Now, there are a few things to keep in mind while doing this, and the first is that you need to make sure that whatever loan you're getting doesn't have an early prepayment penalty. Now, the overwhelming majority of loans don't have such a prepayment penalty, but you're still going to want to be sure to check. And also, some loans will give you a good interest rate by instead charging you points or a fee to originate the loan. In our situation, you don't want to pay any sort of loan origination fee or points or anything like that. Instead, find a loan with no points, but charges you a higher interest rate. I mean, who cares what the interest rate is if we're planning on fully repaying the loan in a week anyway? The alternative to this is that if you can get a good enough interest rate on the loan, you might actually consider keeping the loan in place and simply making payments on the vehicle instead of paying it off right away. If you can get a loan for 3% interest for 60 months, then you could instead take that $20,000 and instead of paying cash for the car, you could just invest it. The stock market traditionally returns roughly 10% annually in the long run. So if you can collect 10% interest and only pay 3% interest, then you create an arbitrage effect where you're actually profiting by about 7% annually. That is assuming, of course, a nice steady stock market. Over those 60 months, your $20,000 could grow by over $8,000, even after paying the 3% interest on your car loan. Now, personally, I'm a huge fan of taking super cheap interest rate loans and then repaying them over time as opposed to paying cash outright. In the long run, I'm earning more interest than I am paying out in interest, which allows my net worth to continue to grow. Now, the downside, of course, is that if your investment has a bad couple of years, you could actually lose some of that invested money and still be required to pay interest to the dealership on top of you losing money in the market. And because this method is a little bit more risky, I do not recommend this strategy if you're living paycheck to paycheck. In that case, it's probably better just to play it safe and repay the loan in a week after buying the car. The larger your overall net worth, the more it makes sense to make tactical, calculated risks, such as this arbitrage method. And that's going to do it for us today, guys, why you should never pay cash for a car. If you've enjoyed this video, consider subscribing and leave a comment with your worst car buying experience. And I'll see you all again next time. Thanks.